Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Nash Whitaker pulled into the gravel driveway and cut the engine. The warehouse shift had drained him, but Ellis bounced in her booster seat, pointing at the wind chimes hanging from Marlene's porch. "Can I ring the big one, Dad?" asked Grandma Marlene first. Nash stepped out and opened Ellis's door. His 8-year-old daughter grabbed her purple backpack and raced toward the front steps. Romy stood by the passenger side of his truck, thumbs flying across her phone screen. She hadn't looked up since they'd left the house 20 minutes ago. "How long again?" Nash asked. "For days." Romy's eyes stayed glued to her phone. "Maybe 5. Depends on work." Nash frowned. "What work?" "You took vacation time. Conference stuff. Last minute." She finally glanced up, but her gaze slid past his shoulder toward Marlene's front door. "Ellis will have fun. Mom's been planning activities." The front door opened. Marlene stepped onto the porch, arms wide for Ellis. "There's my sweet girl. Did you bring your art supplies?" Ellis ran into her grandmother's embrace. "I brought everything. Dad helped me pack the good crayons." Marlene's smile tightened when she saw Nash approaching. "Nash, thank you for bringing her by." "No problem." He handed Ellis her overnight bag. "Be good for Grandma, okay?" Ellis hugged his legs. "I will. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, kiddo." Nash walked back to the truck. Romy was already in the passenger seat, phone pressed to her ear. "No, Tuesday works better," she said into the phone. "Wednesday if we have to." Nash started the engine. "Who was that?" Romy ended the call and dropped the phone in her lap. "Work stuff. Nothing important." The drive home stretched in silence. Romy stared out the window, fingers drumming against her thigh. Nash tried twice to start conversations about their weekend plans, about the grocery list, about anything. Each attempt died after her one-word responses. That night, Nash found Romy in their bedroom, laptop open on the bed. She snapped it shut when he walked in. "How was work today?" he asked, pulling off his boots. "Fine." She slid the laptop on her nightstand. "I'm tired. Long day." Nash nodded and headed for the shower. When he came back, Romy was already under the covers, facing away from him. Her breathing was too controlled. She wasn't asleep, that he lay in the dark, listening to the house settle around them. Something had shifted in the past few weeks. Romy's smiles came slower, if at all. Her laughter sounded forced. She'd started working late more often, started finding reasons to leave the house. Nash stared at the ceiling and tried to pinpoint when it had started. When had his wife become a stranger? For days later, Nash parked outside Marlene's house again. Ellis sat on the porch steps, backpack at her feet, staring at the ground. When she saw the truck, she walked slowly to the curb. "Hey, kiddo." Nash got out and opened her door. "How was your stay?" Ellis climbed into her booster seat without answering. Nash glanced toward the house. Marlene stood in the doorway, watching. She raised her hand in a brief wave and disappeared inside. "Everything okay?" Nash asked, adjusting Ellis's seatbelt. Ellis nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on her lap. The drive home was quiet. Ellis usually chattered about her adventures at Marlene's house, but today she stared out the window, picking at the strap of her backpack. At the tea home, Romy was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She smiled when Ellis walked in, but the smile looked painted on. "Did you have fun, sweetheart?" Ellis shrugged. "It was okay. Just okay. Grandma said you made friendship bracelets." "Yeah." Ellis headed for the stairs. "I'm gonna go to my room." Nash watched their daughter disappear upstairs. "She seems off. She's tired." Romy scraped the vegetables into a pan. 4 days is a long time for a kid. That night, Nash tucked Ellis into bed. She'd been quiet through dinner, pushing food around her plate without eating much. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. Ellis looked up at him, her brown eyes serious. "Dad, yeah, don't go back to that house." Nash felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What house, kiddo?" "Grandma's house." Ellis reached under her pillow and pulled out her iPad. "You shouldn't go there." She pressed the screen a few times, then handed him the tablet. A video was already loaded, paused on a grainy image of Marlene's guest room. "What's this?" Nash asked. "I was playing with the camera app. I didn't mean to record anything." Ellis's voice dropped to a whisper, "But I heard Mom laughing, and she sounded different. So I looked." Nash hit play. The video was shaky, shot through a crack in the guest room door. Voices came from somewhere off-screen, in what Nash recognized as Marlene's living room. "Can't believe how clueless he is." That was Romy's voice, but lighter somehow. Happier than Nash had heard her sound in months. Men like Nash never see it coming. A man's voice. Unfamiliar that Nash's grip tightened on the iPad. The camera shifted, and Nash saw them. Romy sat on Marlene's couch next to a tall man with dark hair. He had his arm around her shoulders. As Nash watched, the man leaned over and kissed her. Romy kissed him back, her hand sliding up to cup his face. "God, I missed this," she murmured against his lips. "Just a little longer," the man said. "Once the papers are ready." "Papers?" Romy pulled back slightly. Marlene's voice came from somewhere off camera. "Just get the papers ready before he smells it. The sooner we can get this moving, the better." "Silas is right, though," Romy said. "Nash doesn't suspect anything. He's so focused on work, on being the good husband and father. He doesn't see what's right in front of him." The man Silas laughed. "Poor bastard." The video ended. Nash stared at the black screen, his heart hammering against his ribs. The iPad trembled in his hands. "Dad!" Ellis's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Are you okay?" Nash forced himself to breathe, to think, to stay calm for his daughter. "Yeah, kiddo. I'm okay." He set the iPad on her nightstand. "Did you show this to anyone else?" Ellis shook her head. "I didn't know if I should. It made my tummy hurt." Nash leaned down and kissed her forehead. "You did the right thing showing me. But let's keep this between us for now, okay?" "Okay." Ellis snuggled deeper under her covers. "Dad, is Mom in trouble?" Nash's throat tightened. "Don't worry about grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Just focus on being a kid." After Ellis fell asleep, Nash sat in his home office, staring at the iPad. He'd watched the video 3 more times, each viewing confirming what he'd seen. His wife of 10 years was planning something with her mother and a man named Silas. Something that required papers. Something Nash wasn't supposed to smell. He opened his laptop and created a new folder in his cloud storage. He titled it Insurance and uploaded the video file. Then he made 2 more copies on separate drives, hiding them in different parts of the house. When he went to bed, Romy was asleep, or pretending to be. Nash lay in the dark, replaying every conversation from the past month. Every late night at work. Every unexplained phone call. Every time she'd been distant or distracted. The signs had been there. He just hadn't wanted to see them. The next 2 weeks passed like a strange dance. Nash went to work, came home, had dinner with his family. He helped Ellis with her homework, watched movies with Romy, maintained a routine of normal life. But underneath, he watched. He listened. He documented that Romy's phone buzzed constantly now. She took calls in the bathroom, in the garage, anywhere Nash couldn't overhear. She'd started going to yoga classes 3 nights a week, coming home flushed and energized in a way Nash hadn't seen in years. "How was class?" he'd ask. "Great. Really challenging tonight." She'd head straight for the shower without meeting his eyes. Nash had driven by the yoga studio twice. Romy's car was never in the parking lot. He started paying closer attention to her phone when she left it unattended. The call logs had been wiped clean every day. Text message threads ended abruptly, as if entire conversations had been deleted. But Romy had always been careless with technology. On a Thursday night, while she was in the shower, Nash noticed her laptop was still open on the kitchen counter. The screensaver was active, but when he moved the mouse, a calendar app was visible. Most of the entries were normal. Ellis's school events, doctor appointments, grocery store trips. But there, on Friday at 6 p.m., was an entry that made Nash's blood run cold. Coffee Canyon Cafe's. Nash memorized the details and closed the laptop. The next day, Romy called in sick to work. She spent the morning in bed, complaining of a headache and nausea. "Poor baby," Nash said, bringing her tea and toast. "Should I pick up some medicine on my way home?" "No, I'll be fine. Just need rest." She snuggled deeper under the covers. "Don't worry about me." At 5:45 p.m., Nash sat in his truck across the street from Canyon Cafe. At 5:52, Romy's blue Honda pulled into the parking lot. She stepped out wearing the black dress she claimed was too nice for everyday wear, her hair styled in loose waves. A T556, a silver BMW parked next to her car. The man who got out was tall with dark hair. Even from a distance, Nash recognized him from Ellis's video. Silas. Nash watched them embrace in the parking lot. Not the brief hug of friends, but the lingering embrace of lovers. Silas's hand rested on the small of Romy's back as they walked into the cafe together. Nash drove home and waited. Romy returned at 9:30, carrying takeout bags from a restaurant across town. Feeling better, Nash asked from the couch. "Much." She held up the bags. "Thought I'd grab us some dinner. That stomach bug wiped me out, but I'm starving now." Nash nodded and helped her set the food on the kitchen table. "Good thing you stayed home and rested." "Exactly." Romy smiled and kissed his cheek. "Sometimes you just need to take care of yourself." They ate dinner and watched a movie. Romy curled up next to him on the couch, her head on his shoulder, like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't spent 3 hours with another man while pretending to be sick. That night, Nash lay awake planning his next moves. He needed more information, more evidence, more proof of whatever Romy and her accomplices were planning. He needed help. Brooks Camden's auto shop sat on the edge of downtown Boulder, squeezed between a tire store and a coffee roaster. Nash found his old friend under the hood of a beat-up Subaru, grease streaking his forearms. Nash! Brooks straightened and wiped his hands on a rag. This is a surprise. Truck giving you trouble? No, I need to talk. Nash glanced around the shop. 2 other mechanics worked at the far end, but they were focused on their own projects. Privately, Brooks studied Nash's face, then nodded toward a small office in the back corner. Coffee's fresh. Help yourself. The office was cramped and cluttered, filled with invoices and parts catalogs. Brooks closed the door and leaned against his desk. What's going on? Nash had rehearsed this conversation, but sitting across from his friend, the words felt clumsy. I think Romy's cheating on me. Brooks's expression didn't change. You think, or you know? I know. Nash pulled out his phone and showed Brooks the video Ellis had recorded. There's more. Late nights, mysterious phone calls, lies about where she's been. Brooks watched the video twice, his jaw tightening. Who's the guy? Silas. That's all I know. Nash pocketed his phone. I need advice. You've been through this. Brooks's ex-wife had left him 3 years ago for her personal trainer. The divorce had been brutal, but Brooks had come out of it with his house and his business intact. First thing, Brooks said, don't do anything stupid. No confrontations, no dramatic scenes. Document everything. I'm already doing that. Good. Second thing, get professional help. Not a therapist. I'm talking about someone who can dig deeper than you can. Brooks opened his desk drawer and pulled out a business card. Reverie Lane. She's a cybersecurity consultant, but she does private work too. Help me figure out where my ex was hiding money. Nash examined the card. Simple white stock with black text. Professional. She's good. The best. Also happens to be a decent human being, which is rare in this business. Brooks leaned back in his chair. Fair warning, she's expensive. But if your wife's planning something big, you need to know about it before it happens. Nash slipped the card into his wallet. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. Brooks's voice was grim. If Romy's playing games, you're about to find out how dirty those games can get. That evening, Nash called the number on the card. A woman answered on the second ring. Reverie Lane. Hi. Brooks Camden gave me your number. I need help with a family situation. A pause. What kind of help? The kind Brooks said you're good at. I see. Can you meet tomorrow? I have an opening at 3. Nash checked his work schedule. I'll be there. Good. I'll text you the address. And Mr. Whitaker. Nash Whitaker. Another pause, longer this time. Nash from UC Boulder. Nash's mind raced backward 15 years. A pretty blonde in his computer science class. Study sessions in the library. 3 dates before she transferred schools. Reverie? Jesus, it's been forever. Yes. Her voice warmed slightly. Well, this just got interesting. I'll see you tomorrow, Nash. The line went dead. Reverie's office occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in downtown Boulder. Nash found her behind a massive desk, surrounded by multiple monitors and enough computer equipment to run a small tech company. She stood when he entered, and Nash was surprised by how little she'd changed. Still blonde, still petite, still carrying herself with quiet confidence. But there were lines around her eyes now, and a wariness that hadn't been there in college. Nash. She came around the desk and shook his hand. You look good. Married life agrees with you. Thanks. Nash settled into the chair across from her desk. Brooks said you could help. Depends on what you need. Reverie returned to her seat. Tell me everything. Nash laid out the whole story. Ellis's video. The lies about yoga classes. The secret meeting at Canyon Cafe. Reverie listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. Show me the video, she said when he finished. Nash played the recording on his phone. Reverie watched intently, her expression growing darker. This Silas character, you don't know his last name? No, I've only seen him once from a distance. But you're sure this is recent? Ellis recorded it 4 days ago. Reverie made another note. Your wife knows you have this. No, Ellis only showed it to me. Good. Don't mention it to anyone else. Not yet. Reverie leaned back in her chair. Nash, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go down this road? Once we start digging, there's no going back. If your wife is planning something, you're going to learn details you might not want to know. Nash thought about Ellis, sleeping peacefully in her bed while her mother plotted in the next room. I need to know. For my daughter. Reverie nodded. Fair enough. I'll need access to your wife's digital footprint. email accounts, social media, phone records. Can you give me your passwords? Some of them. She uses the same password for most things. Text them to me later. Also, I'll need a retainer. 5,000 to start. Nash winced but nodded. When will you know something? Give me a week. Maybe less. Revery's expression softened. Nash, I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. If she's planning to take your daughter, she wouldn't. But even as Nash said it, he remembered Marlene's voice. Just get the papers ready before he smells it. I hope you're right, Reverie said. But let's make sure. 3 days later, Nash's phone buzzed with a text from Reverie. Need to see you. Tonight. It's important. They met at a quiet bar on the outskirts of town. Reverie carried a thick manila folder and a laptop bag. She looked tired. I found some things, she said, sliding into the booth across from him. Not all of it's good news. She opened the folder and spread several printed pages across the table. Your wife's been busy. Email accounts you didn't know about. Private social media profiles. And this. She handed him a printed email chain. Nash recognized Romy's address at the top, but the recipient was unfamiliar. Silas.brennan@lawfirm.com. Nash scanned the messages. Most were personal flirtatious exchanges and plans to meet. But the most recent email made his stomach drop. Silas, Mom thinks we should move faster. She's found a way to handle the house situation, and the custody stuff should be straightforward once we get Nash's episodes documented. Ellis is young enough that she'll adjust. Can you have the paperwork ready by next week? Love you. R. Nash read the email twice. Episodes. Keep reading. Reverie pointed to another set of papers. I found this in a shared Google Drive account. The document was titled Custody Preparation Notes. Nash's hands shook as he read Nash's work schedule. Long hours, weekend shifts, shows lack of involvement. Document instances of anger/yelling, get Ellis to confirm. Financial irresponsibility, gambling, drinking, emotional instability, depression, anxiety attacks. Consider temporary restraining order for safety. Below the notes were photos. Nash stared at images of Ellis and Silas at a playground, Ellis and Silas at an ice cream shop, Ellis and Silas building a snowman. All dated from the past 3 months. She's been introducing them, Nash said quietly. It gets worse. Reverie pulled out another document. Bank records. Your wife opened a solo account 6 weeks ago. She's been transferring money in small amounts, not enough to trigger alerts, but it adds up. She's moved almost $30,000. Nash's vision blurred. That's Ellis's college fund. There's more. She also applied for a separate credit card using a forged letter claiming spousal separation. The application was approved. Nash stared at the evidence spread across the table. His wife wasn't just cheating on him. She was systematically dismantling their life together, positioning herself to take their daughter and their money while painting him as an unfit father. How long, he asked, based on the digital trail? She's been planning this for at least 4 months. Maybe longer. Reverie's voice was gentle. Nash, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Nash gathered the papers and slid them back into the folder. What else do you need? I want to keep monitoring her communications. And I think we should set up some recordings of your own. If she's planning to claim you're unstable, you need proof of your actual behavior. What kind of recordings? Audio and video of your interactions at home, especially if she tries to provoke you into an argument. Reverie reached in her laptop bag and pulled out a small device. This is a voice recorder. Keep it on you when you're home. If she starts pushing your buttons, you'll have proof of what really happened. Nash pocketed the device. Anything else? Yes. Don't change your behavior. Keep being the good husband and father. Don't let her know you suspect anything. And whatever you do, don't leave the house. In custody cases, abandonment of the family home can be used against you. Nash nodded. How long do we have? Based on the emails, I'd say a few weeks at most. She's moving fast. Reverie closed her laptop. Nash, you need to see a lawyer. Soon. Can you recommend someone? Clint Jessup. He's handled cases like this before. Tell him I sent you. She handed him another business card. And Nash, be careful. If your wife suspects, she might accelerate her timeline. Nash drove home in a daze. The house was dark except for the porch light. Romy's car sat in the driveway, but he could see the glow of her laptop screen through the living room window. He sat in his truck for a long moment, staring at his home. Tomorrow, he would call Clint Jessup. Tomorrow, he would start building his own case. Tonight, he would go inside and pretend everything was normal. Clint Jessup's law office felt like a fortress. Dark wood paneling, heavy furniture, shelves lined with legal texts. The lawyer himself was a compact man in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Reverie said, you have a complicated situation. Clint said, reviewing the folder Nash had brought. She wasn't exaggerating. Nash waited while Clint read through the evidence. The lawyer's expression grew grimmer with each page. "Your wife's been thorough," Clint said finally. "But she's also made some mistakes. This email chain, for instance, it's clear evidence of premeditation. And these financial transfers could constitute fraud. What can we do?" "Several things. First, you need to secure your assets immediately. Move your personal accounts to a different bank. Set up a trust for your daughter's college fund, something your wife can't access. Document every penny that's missing." Clint pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "Second, we need to file paperwork of our own. I'll prepare a protective custody motion, but we won't file it until we're ready to move. The element of surprise is crucial. What about the house? Don't leave it, not even for a night. In Colorado, abandonment of the marital home can hurt your custody case." Clint leaned forward. "But more importantly, you need to start building evidence of your fitness as a parent. Document your time with your daughter. Keep receipts for everything you buy for her. Take photos of activities you do together." Nash pulled out the voice recorder Reverie had given him. She mentioned something about recording conversations. "Smart. If your wife tries to provoke you into an argument, having audio proof of what really happened could be invaluable." Clint's eyes hardened. "Nash, I have to warn you, cases like this can get ugly fast. Your wife and her mother are planning to destroy your reputation. They'll claim you're violent, unstable, unfit to have custody. Are you prepared for that?" Nash thought about Ellis, trusting and innocent, being coached to lie about her own father. "I'm prepared." "Good, because we're going to fight fire with fire." Clint closed the folder. "I'll need a retainer. $15,000 to start." Nash's heart sank. Between Reverie's fee and now this, his savings were disappearing fast. But he had no choice. "I'll have it to you by tomorrow." That afternoon, Nash visited 3 different banks, moving money and setting up new accounts. At the last stop, he met with a trust attorney who specialized in protecting assets during divorce proceedings. "You're cutting it close," the attorney warned. "If your wife's lawyers claim you're hiding assets, it could backfire." "She's already hiding assets," Nash said. "I'm just protecting what's left." The trust paperwork would take a week to finalize, but at least Ellis's college fund would be safe. Nash had also discovered something disturbing during his financial review. Romy had somehow taken out a second mortgage on their house. The paperwork bore his signature, but Nash had never signed anything. His wife had forged his name. By the time Nash got home, it was after 6. Ellis was in the living room, watching cartoons and eating a snack. Romy stood in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. "How was work?" she asked without looking up. "Busy. Sorry I'm late." Nash kissed Ellis's head and joined Romy in the kitchen. "Smells good. Just spaghetti. Nothing fancy." Romy finally looked at him, and Nash saw something calculating in her eyes. "You seem stressed lately. Everything okay?" "Just work stuff. Budget season, you know how it is." Romy set down her spoon. "Maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist or something. You've been different." Nash felt a chill run down his spine. "Different how?" "I don't know. Moody. Distracted. Sometimes you seem angry for no reason." Her voice was carefully casual. "It might help to talk to a professional." "I'm not angry." Nash kept his tone level, but his hand moved to the voice recorder in his pocket. He pressed the record button. "See? You're getting defensive right now." Romy's voice took on a concerned tone. "Ellis has noticed too. She asked me yesterday if Daddy was mad at her." Nash's jaw tightened. Ellis had been playing happily when he walked in. She'd seemed perfectly normal. "Ellis said that. She's worried about you." "We both are." Romy moved closer, placing her hand on his arm. "I think you should see Dr. Palmer. Remember him? He helped your brother after his divorce." Nash stared at his wife. She was setting him up, trying to establish a narrative of mental instability. If he refused therapy, she'd claim he was in denial. If he agreed, she'd twist whatever he said to support her case. "I'll think about it," he said. "Good." Romy smiled and patted his arm. "I love you, Nash. I just want you to be happy." She turned back to the stove, humming softly. Nash stood there for a moment, watching her cook dinner for the family she was planning to destroy. That night, he lay in bed listening to Romy's breathing. She'd been unusually affectionate during dinner, asking about his day, suggesting they take a family vacation soon. Ellis had been her normal, cheerful self, showing no signs of the worry Romy claimed she'd expressed. Nash's phone buzzed with a text from Reverie. "New development. Need to meet tomorrow. Urgent." Nash deleted the message and stared at the ceiling. Whatever Romy was planning, it was accelerating. He could feel time running out, like sand slipping through his fingers. But he wasn't the same man she'd married 10 years ago. He'd learned patience from years of managing complex logistics at the warehouse. He'd learned strategy from watching his supervisors navigate corporate politics. Most importantly, he learned that the quiet man often sees more than anyone realizes. Romy had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated him. Nash met Reverie at the same bar they'd used before. This time, she looked agitated, her laptop bag clutched tightly as she slid into the booth. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Your wife's timeline just moved up. Way up." She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward Nash. An email thread was displayed, dated earlier that day. "She's planning something for this weekend. Look at this message from her mother." Nash read the email. "Romy, Silas says the paperwork is ready to file. We should do this soon, before Nash gets suspicious. Can you get him worked up enough to do something stupid? We need that incident report." "Love, Mom, incident report?" Nash looked up at Reverie. "They want you to lose your temper. Do something they can call the police about. Domestic disturbance. Maybe even assault if they can push you far enough." Reverie's face was grim. With an incident report on file, their custody case becomes much stronger. Nash felt sick. "They want me to hit her, or grab her, or raise your voice loud enough that neighbors complain, or break something in anger. Anything they can spin as violent behavior." Reverie closed the laptop. "Nash, you cannot take the bait. No matter what she does, no matter how she provokes you, you have to stay calm. I'm not a violent person. I know that. But people under stress do things they normally wouldn't. And your wife knows exactly which buttons to push." Reverie leaned forward. "I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." "What?" "We give her what she wants." "Sort of." Reverie pulled out her phone. "You're going to have a breakdown. But it's going to be the kind that helps your case, not hers." Nash stared at her. "Explain." "Anxiety attack. Panic episode. Something that makes you look vulnerable and sympathetic, not violent and dangerous. If she records it, and she will have our own recording that shows exactly how she manipulated you into it. I don't know how to fake a panic attack. You don't have to fake it. The stress you're under is real. We're just going to channel it." Reverie pulled up a video on her phone. This is what a genuine anxiety attack looks like. Heavy breathing, shaking hands, feeling overwhelmed. Nothing aggressive. Nash watched the video, disturbed by how familiar some of the symptoms looked. He'd been having trouble sleeping, feeling constant tension in his chest. "You really think this will work? If she's trying to provoke you into violence, and instead you have what appears to be a mental health crisis, it undermines her narrative. You become the victim, not the threat." Reverie put her phone away. "But timing is everything, and you have to commit to it completely." That weekend, Nash prepared carefully. He set up a small camera in the living room, hidden behind a picture frame. He charged the voice recorder and tested its range. Most importantly, he prepared himself mentally for whatever Romy was planning. Saturday passed normally. Romy was unusually cheerful, making pancakes for breakfast and suggesting they take Ellis to the park. But Nash noticed her checking her phone constantly, as if waiting for something. Sunday evening, Ellis was in her room working on a school project when Romy approached Nash in the kitchen. "We need to talk," she said, her tone suddenly serious. "About what?" "About us. About this marriage." Romy leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I'm not happy, Nash. Haven't been for a long time." Nash felt his pulse quicken, but he kept his voice level. "What do you mean?" "I mean we're not working. You're distant, you're moody, you barely talk to me anymore." Her voice rose slightly. "And now you're scaring Ellis with your behavior." "I'm not scaring Ellis." "Yes, you are. She told me she's afraid to ask you for help with her homework because you might yell at her." Romy's eyes flashed with something that looked like satisfaction. A child shouldn't be afraid of her own father. Nash's hands clenched into fists. Ellis had asked for help with math just that morning, laughing when he'd made silly voices while explaining fractions. "That's not true." "It is true, and it's getting worse." Romy pushed off from the counter, moving closer. "I think you need professional help. Real help, not just therapy, maybe medication. There's nothing wrong with me. Look at yourself, Nash. Look how you're acting right now. You're getting angry because I'm trying to help you." Romy's voice took on a patronizing tone. "This is exactly what I'm talking about." Nash felt his chest tightening. The recorder in his pocket was capturing every word, but he could also see Romy's phone propped against a bowl of fruit, its camera pointed directly at him. "I'm not angry," he said, but his voice sounded strained even to himself. "Yes, you are. You're always angry now. At work, at home, at me, at Ellis." Romy stepped closer, her voice dropping to a cruel whisper. "No wonder she doesn't want to spend time with you anymore." Nash's breathing started coming faster. This was at the moment Reverie had prepared him for. He let the stress and fear and betrayal of the past weeks rise to the surface. "Stop," he said, his voice breaking. "Stop what?" "Telling the truth." Romy's eyes were bright with malicious pleasure. "You know what Ellis told me yesterday? She said she wishes Silas was her daddy instead of you." Nash felt something snap inside his chest. Not anger, something deeper and more painful. The air seemed to leave his lungs all at once. His hands started shaking. She didn't say that. But even as he spoke, Nash felt himself falling into the breakdown. The trembling in his hands spread up his arms. His vision started to tunnel. She did say it, because Silas is kind to her. He listens to her. He doesn't make her afraid. Romy's voice was relentless. "He's going to be a much better father than you ever were." Nash gripped the edge of the counter, his breathing rapid and shallow. The panic was real now, fed by months of betrayal and the thought of losing his daughter. But he remembered Revery's advice: no violence, no anger, just vulnerability. I can't breathe," he gasped. "Oh, please." Romy's tone was dismissive. "Don't be so dramatic." Nash slid down the cabinet until he was sitting on the floor, head in his hands. His whole body was shaking now. Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. For a moment, Romy's expression flickered with uncertainty. This wasn't the explosion of rage she'd been trying to provoke. "Nash, I can't make it stop," Nash whispered. "I can't make it stop." From upstairs came the sound of Ellis's door opening. "Mom? Dad? Is everything okay?" Romy quickly grabbed her phone, stopping the recording. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Dad's just tired." Nash looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. In that moment, the emotion was completely genuine. "Why are you doing this to me?" Romy stared down at him, confusion replacing the calculation in her eyes. This wasn't going according to plan. "Dad!" Ellis appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with worry. Nash wiped his face and took a shuddering breath. "I'm okay, kiddo. Just having a rough day." Ellis ran to him and wrapped her arms around his neck. "It's okay, Dad. Sometimes I get scared too." Nash hugged his daughter tightly, drawing strength from her solid warmth. Over her head, he met Romy's eyes. His wife looked shaken, uncertain for the first time in months. "Maybe you should go lie down," Romy said quietly. Nash nodded and stood up, Ellis still clinging to him. "Yeah, I think I will." That night, he listened to the recording he'd made. 30 minutes of Romy systematically trying to provoke him into violence, followed by his breakdown. The contrast was stark, her deliberate cruelty versus his genuine distress. He uploaded the file to his secure folder and made backup copies. Tomorrow, he would call Clint Jessup. It was time to stop playing defense. Nash's hands were steady as he straightened his tie in the bathroom mirror. Today was the day he'd been preparing for, the culmination of weeks of careful planning and evidence gathering. "You look nice," Romy said from the bedroom doorway. "Important meeting, mediation session. Remember? We discussed this last week." Nash's voice was calm, professional. "I thought it would be good for us to talk through our issues with a neutral party." Romy's expression flickered with surprise. After his breakdown the previous Sunday, she'd been treating him with careful concern, as if he might shatter again at any moment. The suggestion of mediation had caught her off guard, but she'd agreed, probably thinking it was another step toward the narrative she was building. "Right? Dr. Holbrook's office. Dr. Chun, actually. Different mediator. I'll text you the address." Nash picked up his briefcase, heavy with printed documents and backup drives. "See you there at 2? "Of course." Romy smiled, but Nash caught the uncertainty in her eyes. "I think this will be good for us." Nash drove to Clint Jessup's office, where the lawyer was waiting with final preparations. "Everyone's confirmed," Clint said, reviewing his notes. "The mediator, your wife, her mother, and this Silas character. They think they're coming to a peaceful discussion about co-parenting arrangements. And they have no idea what we have. None. Revery's been monitoring their communications. As far as they know, you're still the broken man who had a panic attack in his kitchen." Clint's smile was sharp. They're walking into an ambush. The mediation office was in a professional building downtown, with neutral decor and soft lighting designed to promote calm discussion. Nash arrived first, settling into a chair at the conference table with his briefcase at his feet. Romy arrived next, accompanied by Marlene. Both women wore expressions of sympathetic concern, as if they were there to help a troubled family member. They took seats across from Nash. "How are you feeling?" Romy asked, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "I've been worried about you." "Better. Thank you." Nash didn't pull his hand away. "I think this is the right step." Dr. Chun, the mediator, entered with his assistant. He was a calm, professional man in his 60s who specialized in family disputes. He explained the process and ground rules, emphasizing the importance of honest communication. "We're expecting one more participant," Clint said as they were about to begin. "One more?" Romy frowned. "I thought this was just family." The door opened, and Silas Brennan walked in. He was younger than Nash had expected, probably early 30s, with the confident bearing of someone used to getting his way. His expensive suit and polished shoes screamed lawyer. Romy went pale. "Silas? What are you doing here?" "I invited him," Nash said quietly. "Since this situation involves him, I thought he should be part of the discussion." Silas looked between Nash and Romy, clearly confused. This wasn't what he'd been expecting either. "Mr. Brennan," Dr. Chun said, "please take a seat. Mr. Whitaker has requested your participation in this mediation." Silas sat next to Marlene, who looked like she wanted to bolt from the room. The careful plan they'd been executing was suddenly spiraling out of their control. "Now, then," Dr. Chun said, "Mr. Whitaker has called this mediation to discuss concerns about his marriage and family situation. Nash, would you like to begin?" Nash opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. "I would. Thank you." He placed a printed photograph on the table, a still frame from Ellis's video showing Romy and Silas kissing on Marlene's couch. "I'd like to start by acknowledging that my wife is having an affair with Mr. Brennan." The silence in the room was deafening. Romy stared at the photograph as if it might disappear. Silas's face went red, then white. "Nash," Romy said weakly, "I can explain. Please don't interrupt." Nash's voice remained calm and level. "Dr. Chun, this mediation is being recorded, correct?" "Yes, with everyone's consent, as stated in the agreement you all signed." "Good." Nash pulled out another document. "I'd like to play some audio recordings that are relevant to our discussion." He set a small speaker on the table and pressed play. Romy's voice filled the room. "Can't believe how clueless he is." Silas's voice. "Men like Nash never see it coming." Marlene's voice. "Just get the papers ready before he smells it." Nash let the recording play for 30 seconds before stopping it. Romy looked sick. Marlene was staring at the table. Silas was calculating, probably trying to figure out if any of this could be used against him legally. "This recording was made by my 8-year-old daughter during her stay at Marlene's house," Nash said. "Inadvertently, of course. Children and technology, you know how it is." Dr. Chun was taking detailed notes. "These are serious allegations, Mr. Whitaker. They're about to get more serious." Nash pulled out a thick stack of printed emails. "These are communications between my wife and Mr. Brennan, discussing their plans to obtain custody of my daughter through fraudulent means." He read from the top email, "Mom thinks we should move faster. She's found a way to handle the house situation, and the custody stuff should be straightforward once we get Nash's episodes documented." Romy found her voice. "You hacked my email? That's illegal." Actually, Clint said, speaking for the first time, "In Colorado, discovering evidence of fraud is protected under the marital privilege doctrine. But we can discuss that later." Nash continued reading. "Ellis is young enough that she'll adjust. Can you have the paperwork ready by next week?" He set down the email and pulled out bank statements. "These documents show systematic transfer of marital assets to accounts my wife opened without my knowledge. Approximately $30,000, including my daughter's college fund." Dr. Chun was writing furiously. "Mr. Brennan, are you representing Mrs. Whitaker in a legal capacity?" Silas looked trapped. This is highly irregular. I should consult with my partners before." "Of course." Nash smiled coldly. "But first, let me share one more recording." He played the audio from his kitchen breakdown, starting with Romy's deliberate provocations and ending with his emotional collapse. When it finished, the room was silent. "This was recorded last Sunday evening," Nash said. "My wife was attempting to provoke me into violence so she could file a police report. Instead, I had what my doctor has diagnosed as an acute stress reaction brought on by emotional abuse." Nash reached into his briefcase one final time and pulled out a USB drive, which he slid across the table to Dr. Chun. "This drive contains the complete digital chain of evidence. Email threads, bank records, forged documents, and multiple audio and video recordings spanning several weeks. Everything is time-stamped and verified." He stood up and straightened his jacket. "Dr. Chun, I believe this concludes my opening statement. I'll let my attorney handle the rest." Clint leaned forward. "Dr. Chun, given the evidence presented today, I'll be filing several motions with the court tomorrow morning. Fraud charges against Mrs. Whitaker and Mrs. Carlisle. A protective order for Mr. Whitaker and his daughter. Full custody pending investigation of the conspiracy to commit perjury. Nash looked across the table at his wife. Romy was crying now, but not the manipulative tears he'd grown used to. These were tears of panic and defeat. I trusted you, Nash said quietly. I loved you, and you were planning to destroy me and steal my daughter. Nash, please. We're done here. Nash picked up his briefcase. Dr. Chun, thank you for your time. Clint, I'll be at your office if you need anything else. Nash walked out of the mediation room and didn't look back. Scene 2. Legal destruction. The courthouse steps were crowded with people coming and going, but Nash felt isolated in the bubble of his own thoughts. 3 weeks had passed since the mediation. 3 weeks of legal motions, evidence reviews, and strategy sessions with Clint Jessup. It's over, Clint said, emerging from the courthouse with a satisfied expression. Judge Mitchell ruled in our favor on every count. Nash felt something release in his chest. Everything. Emergency custody order is permanent pending the fraud trial. Romy's been barred from the house and can only see Ellis during supervised visits. The protective order stands. Clint handed Nash a folder of official documents, and the DA is moving forward with criminal charges for the mortgage fraud. Nash scanned the papers. It was more than he'd hoped for. What about Silas? Interesting development there. His law firm fired him yesterday. Turns out using your position to help commit fraud isn't great for your legal career. Clint's smile was grim. He's also being investigated by the state bar. I doubt he'll practice law again. They walked down the courthouse steps together. Nash felt lighter than he had in months, but also strangely empty. The betrayal was behind him, but the damage to his family would take years to heal. What about Marlene? She's facing charges too. Conspiracy to commit fraud, accessory to forgery. At her age, she'll probably get probation, but her involvement is well documented. Clint stopped at the bottom of the steps. Nash, I have to ask, how are you doing with all this? Nash considered the question. Ellis is safe. She's with me. That's what matters. And the rest of it was a lie. Have been for months, maybe years. I'm not mourning something that was already dead. Nash shook his lawyer's hand. Thank you, Clint, for everything. Thank you for coming prepared. Most clients in your situation are too emotional to think strategically. You played this perfectly. Nash drove home to find Ellis in the backyard, building a fort out of old cardboard boxes. She looked up when he approached, her face lighting up with a smile that reminded him why he'd fought so hard. Dad, look what I made. That's incredible, kiddo. Is it big enough for 2 people? Maybe. You're pretty tall. Ellis giggled and ducked into the cardboard structure. How was court? Nash had been honest with Ellis about the divorce, explaining it in terms an 8-year-old could understand. She knew Mom had made some bad choices and wouldn't be living with him anymore. She also knew Dad was working hard to keep her safe. Court was good. Everything's settled now. Does that mean Mom won't try to take me away? Nash's heart clenched. Ellis had overheard more than he'd realized during those final weeks. No, sweetheart. You're staying right here with me. Good. Ellis popped her head out of the fort. Can we have pizza for dinner? Absolutely. That evening, while Ellis worked on homework at the kitchen table, Nash got a call from Reverie. I heard the news, she said. Congratulations. Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done this without your help. You would have figured it out eventually. You're smarter than you give yourself credit for. Reverie paused. How's Ellis handling everything? Nash watched his daughter carefully coloring a math worksheet, her tongue poking out in concentration. She's resilient. Kids adapt faster than adults. And how are you handling everything? One day at a time. Nash realized he meant it. Actually, I wanted to ask, are you free this weekend? Ellis has been asking about your daughter Maya. I thought maybe we could arrange a play date. I'd like that. Maya's been asking about Ellis too. Reverie's voice warmed. It would be good for them to be around other kids dealing with similar situations. Similar situations? Divorce, single parents, rebuilt families. It helps them feel less alone. Reverie paused. It helps the parents feel less alone too. Nash smiled for the first time in weeks. Saturday afternoon work for you? Perfect. I'll bring snacks. The final court hearing was scheduled for a gray Thursday morning in November. Nash sat in the gallery with Clint, watching as the judge reviewed the last of the financial documents. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, the state requests immediate restitution for the fraudulent mortgage, plus penalties and interest. The total comes to $237,000. Nash glanced across the courtroom at Romy, who sat between her public defender and her mother. She looked older than her 36 years, worn down by months of legal battles and public humiliation. Marlene looked equally defeated, her carefully maintained facade crumbling under the weight of criminal charges. Mrs. Whitaker, Judge Mitchell said, You understand that this restitution is separate from any civil judgments your ex-husband might pursue? Yes, Your Honor. Romy's voice was barely audible. And you understand that failure to pay will result in additional criminal penalties? Yes, Your Honor. Clint leaned over to Nash. Here comes the best part. Judge Mitchell opened another folder. I've also reviewed the prenuptial agreements signed by both parties prior to marriage. Mr. Jessup, would you explain Section 12 for the record? Clint stood up. Certainly, Your Honor. Section 12 is the fraud clause. If either party commits fraud against the other during marriage, the offending party forfeits all claims to joint marital assets. Nash watched Romy's face go white. She'd forgotten about the prenup clause, the one protection Nash had insisted on after seeing what happened to his brother during his divorce. At the time, Romy had laughed and signed it without reading the fine print. Mrs. Whitaker, the judge continued, did you read and understand this prenuptial agreement when you signed it? Romy's lawyer whispered something in her ear. Yes, Your Honor. Then you understand that the mortgage fraud constitutes a breach of this agreement. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Mitchell signed several documents. By the power vested in me by the state of Colorado, I hereby award all joint marital assets to Nash Whitaker, including but not limited to the family home, vehicles, and remaining financial accounts. Mrs. Whitaker, you have 30 days to remove your personal effects from the marital home. Nash felt a surge of satisfaction, but also something like pity. Romy wasn't just divorced, she was financially ruined. The house, the cars, even her jewelry collection, everything was legally his now. Additionally, the judge said, Mrs. Whitaker will pay Mr. Whitaker the sum of $50,000 in punitive damages for emotional distress and legal fees. Romy's shoulders shook with silent sobs. Beside her, Marlene looked like she'd aged 10 years in the past few minutes. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Nash walked with Clint toward the parking garage. How does it feel? Clint asked. Like justice. Nash pulled out his phone to check the time. He needed to pick up Ellis from school soon. What happens next? Romy has to sell her mother's house to pay the restitution and damages. Neither of them can afford lawyers for appeals, so the judgments will stand. Clint stopped at his car. Nash, I've handled a lot of these cases. I've never seen anyone come back from this level of systematic betrayal as strong as you have. I had help. And I had motivation. Nash thought about Ellis, who'd been sleeping better since the custody order was finalized. When someone threatens your child, you find strength you didn't know you had. True, but you did more than survive this, you turned it into a strategic victory. That takes a special kind of discipline. Nash shrugged. They underestimated me. Romy thought I was weak because I'm quiet. Marlene thought I was stupid because I trusted them. Silas thought I was irrelevant because I wasn't a lawyer. And what were they? Nash smiled, the first genuinely happy smile he'd felt in almost a year. Wrong. 6 months later, Nash stood in his backyard watching Ellis and Maya build an elaborate obstacle course for Maya's dog. Spring had come early to Boulder, and the girls were making the most of the warm weather. They're going to wear poor Buster out, Reverie said, joining Nash on the deck with 2 glasses of iced tea. Buster's loving every minute of it. Nash accepted the glass gratefully. Thanks for this. And for everything else. Stop thanking me. We're friends. Reverie settled into the chair next to his. How's the new job? Nash had left the warehouse 3 months ago to take a position as operations manager for a logistics company downtown. Better hours, better pay, and most importantly, a schedule that allowed him to be more present for Ellis. Good. Different. I forgot how much I like solving complex problems. Nash watched Ellis demonstrate proper jumping technique for Maya. Ellis is thriving too. Her teacher says she's more confident this year. Kids are resilient. Give them stability and love, and they bounce back from almost anything. A motorcycle rumbled into the driveway. Brooks Camden appeared around the corner of the house, carrying a cooler and wearing a grin. Sorry I'm late. Got held up at the shop. He set the cooler down and pulled out 3 bottles of root beer. Ladies, he called to the girls, who want a cold drink? Ellis and Maya raced over, chattering excitedly about their obstacle course achievements. Brooks listened seriously to their descriptions, asking detailed questions about technique and strategy. Uncle Brooks, Ellis said, did you know Dad beat 3 bad guys in court? Brooks's eyes twinkled. 3 bad guys, huh? That's pretty impressive. Mom and Grandma Marlene and the mean lawyer man. Ellis's expression grew serious. But Dad was smarter than all of them. Your dad's a pretty smart guy. Brooks agreed. What do you think made him smarter? Ellis considered this carefully. He didn't get angry. He made a plan instead. Nash felt a warmth spread through his chest. His daughter understood, at least in her own way, what had happened and why. That's exactly right, Brooks said. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous. Dangerous? Ellis giggled. Dad's not dangerous. He makes pancakes on Saturday mornings. The very best kind of dangerous, Brooks said solemnly, then winked at Nash. As the afternoon wore on, Nash found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. Ellis was happy and safe. His finances were stable. He had friends who cared about him and a future that felt open rather than constrained. When Maya's mother came to pick her up, the girls made elaborate plans for their next play date. After they left, Brooks helped Nash clean up the yard while Ellis took a bath. You know what I keep thinking about? Brooks said, loading lawn chairs into the garage. What's that? The night you came to my shop, back when this whole thing started. You were so wound up, so angry and confused. Brooks straightened and looked at Nash. Look at you now. You didn't just survive what they did to you, you came out stronger. Nash considered this. I don't feel stronger. I feel clearer, I guess. Like I know who I am now. That's what strength looks like for guys like us. Not the loud, angry kind. The kind that endures and plans and protects what matters. Brooks clapped Nash on the shoulder. You didn't just win, man. You outplayed 3 snakes at their own game. Nash smiled, remembering Clint's words from months ago. They underestimated the wrong, quiet man. Damn right they did. That evening, after Ellis was asleep and Brooks had headed home, Nash sat on his deck with a cup of coffee and his laptop. He'd been documenting everything not for legal purposes anymore, but for Ellis. Someday, when she was older, she might want to understand what had happened and why. His phone buzzed with a text from Reverie. Thanks for a great afternoon. Maya can't stop talking about the obstacle course. Same time next week. Nash typed back, looking forward to it. He set the phone aside and looked out at his yard, peaceful in the gathering dusk. Somewhere across town, Romy was probably living in a small apartment, working a job that barely covered her rent and legal obligations. Marlene was facing her own reduced circumstances, her comfortable retirement shattered by legal fees and restitution payments. Nash felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only relief that the threat to his family had been neutralized. He'd fought back not out of anger or revenge, but out of love for his daughter and respect for the truth. The screen door opened behind him. Ellis appeared in her pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. Dad, I had a bad dream. Nash opened his arms, and she climbed onto his lap, curling up against his chest like she used to when she was smaller. Want to talk about it? I dreamed that the bad people came back and tried to take me away again. Nash held her tighter. That's never going to happen, kiddo. I promise. How do you know? Because I'll always protect you. That's my job as your dad. Nash smoothed her hair back from her forehead. And because the bad people learned that trying to hurt our family was a very big mistake. Ellis was quiet.